Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to a best of 7 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Zerg versus Zerg, where in the bottom left hand corner we have none other than Serral, and his opponent in the top right we have SHIN. SHIN going up against Serral. These two, back when Ragnarok was still his name, these two, they have played some very spicy games of ZVZ in the past. This particular best of 7 is from the Pig Sty tournament, so I haven't seen it yet. I'm excited to find out exactly what ended up going down between these two. Both of them opening up with an extractor trick. Fun fact, for the first 9 years of Legacy of the Void, for the first 14 years of StarCraft 2, it was assumed that the extractor trick build order was actually inferior to the good old 13 Overlord. Until Lambo did the math about a half year ago or so at this point, and he realized, wait a second, you're actually a couple minerals ahead if you do it perfectly. Somebody did the math way back when when Legacy of the Void first released, and apparently they were just not very good at doing the extractor trick. So basically what you do with an extractor trick, at 14 out of 14, you build an extractor, then you make another drone, and then you cancel the extractor, meaning that you get, well, that one worker that was building the Vespian gas geyser back, and you're now at 15 out of 14 supply, and then you make an Overlord. Now, if you're a ladder hero, I don't recommend you actually mess around with it. I think, aw, little Overlord kiss. That's beautiful. I think it's actually better to just go 13 Overlord, unless you're a pro gamer, because the advantage is very small, and the problem is if you misclick at any point in time, you will be behind. Not really, you know, worth the early game hassle, but at this level of play, any advantage is significant, even if it's just a mineral or two. Well, it's going to be hatchery first here for the both of them. I'm actually excited to find out what ended up happening between these two, because honestly, ZVZ is a very difficult matchup to master. The problem, of course, is that units move at about 1,000,000 miles an hour, damage is extremely high, time to kill and lethality is extremely, well, time to kill is very low. Lethality is very high, so you have to be extremely decisive in this matchup. Furthermore, this is Korea going up against Europe, meaning that the games are likely played on the American server to make the ping as, well, fair as possible. But both players are probably sitting at about 150 or so. ZVZ cross-server is difficult, to say the least. Serral opening up with a much faster third hatchery here. He did leave 2 drones in gas. Same can be said right now here for SHIN, who is opening up with a 2 base. Okay, so we have a little bit of variety. So SHIN opening up 2 base, Serral opening up 3. You would imagine that that automatically means that Serral is going to be playing the eco game, but usually in Zerg versus Zerg, you can actually make more drones as a 2 base player than you can as a 3 base player. The main problem you run into is that, well, you never know what's happening inside of the main base of the player that is opening up with 2. Is SHIN hiding Zerglings? Is he going for a hidden Baneling nest? You can't really know unless the Lings run in. So Serral basically has to be prepared against everything. So that's why he's making a bunch of blind Lings. That's why he's making a Roach Warren, and he's just trying to play safe. In the meantime, SHIN, well, he's actually making a bunch of Zerglings of his own right now. A little bit surprising. But he can drone up as hard as he likes. So let's see. Where do we go from here? +1 armor, by the way, here for SHIN. So +1 armor, it benefits Roaches, Ravagers, Zerglings, Banelings, the whole shebang. This is SHIN opening up with an all-in. Yep. So he has stopped droning. I mean, he's making a couple of drones right now, but he is mostly done droning. He wants to go for a big attack. I'm a little surprised. Really? Huh. I'm a little surprised we go +1 armor. He's playing a mind game and a half here, because I can't even really make sense of this. He is faking a mass Ling Flood, which is designed to kill the opponent's third hatch, but then in the meantime, he's actually going for an all-in that hits much later than this. So he's just trying to get some value here, force the Zerg in blue to retreat from the third, builds up the third hatchery of his own, goes into the lair. I mean, this is one of those, like, 200 IQ versus, like, 5 IQ mind games. Whereas if Serral just goes full caveman and he just makes more drones, he's going to be fine. If Serral starts thinking too much and he starts analyzing all of the possibilities, You know, if he goes full Doctor Strange here and he decides to look at all the possible futures, he may actually get into his own head a little bit. But he's actually fine to drone. Yep, roach speed coming up right now here for SHIN. And this is why I prefer 2-base. Because 2-base is just way less complex. In general, actually, if you're playing the aggressor in this matchup, and basically in any matchup in StarCraft 2. But if you're the aggressor versus the defender, usually it's 10 times easier. So let's see. Serral now trying to get a scout. He has no idea what's happening, although he did see a roach spawn. Oh. Okay. Overseer is dead. It could be a 2-base Spire. It could be 2-base Nidus. It could be a lot of shenanigans here. Ultimately, Serral is free to drone. Problem for him is he doesn't know. So, he is making roach speed right now, which is, I guess, him taking a little tiny chance. It is one of those upgrades you do sort of need. Shindo, well, still a little bit behind in the worker count. The third Nexus now, or that third hatchery here from Serral, really has kicked in. He's trying to get some scouting done himself on the other side of the map. Also loses the Overseer. Okay. With +1 armor finished, and roach speed now also finishing up, SHIN has decided that it is his turn to try and get some damage in. Serral is finishing up the +1 missile though, which is mostly going to nullify, well, the +1 armor that SHIN has already made. Does he have the numbers advantage? Obviously, defender's advantage here is excellent. We have a nice concave here as well of roaches, and that is the exact way you want to defend here as Serral. Queen's obviously also available now. SHIN decides to jump this, but I think he's getting a little bit over-eager. I think Serral is okay. Yeah. SHIN is like, if I just pretend I have the bigger numbers, my opponent will surely be afraid of me. And Serral's like, okay, bro, let's fight. Yeah, SHIN trying to play a 200 IQ mind game, and he almost got there. But then ultimately, Serral just has barely enough stuff, which is exactly what you want in this matchup. If you have just enough stuff to defend, it means that you made enough drones, assuming you also spent your money. It means that you made enough workers to stay ahead, and at this point, Serral's got a 12, well, I'm not even going to continue doing math. He's got a significant worker advantage. SHIN now has to play catch-up. Soon it'll be Serral's turn to try and be the aggressor. +2 missile coming up. Spinecrawler also building, though, so he's not entirely convinced that everything really is as safe as I believe it to be. Okay. Yeah, there is a small group of Zerglings in the far bottom right. And obviously having a Spinecrawler over here, well, it would have been nice. Serral decides, nope, this is not a continued all-in. I need those additional 100 minerals. We're gonna keep dancing. 10 additional roaches coming up. Keep in mind, Serral still has not really gone across the map other than any of those, well, early game Zerglings of his. But I think when he goes, it'll hit like an absolute sledgehammer. He may wait until +2 missile. Yeah. He's probably going to max out before that, though, so it's a little bit finicky. He's either going to attack, I think, with 200 supply, or he's going to go when +2 missile finishes up, whichever comes first. Fourth hatchery is also an option. Spire would be an option, but I don't think Serral will be making that choice. SHIN can, well, he could go into the Spire here if he wants to, because he needs something. He's decided, though, that his situation is not that bad. At the very least, he believes that his situation is not that bad. So he is just going to try and defend the roach bush with roaches. Problem is, Serral's got 7 more workers than him. And obviously, when you're both making the same units, well, you end up with less. Let's see. Position, though, is also an absolute massive key. Serral is now indeed maxed out. +2 missile coming up. Concave here in favor of the finisher by a mile. Couple reinforcing roaches will be needed to try and keep those lings at bay. So far, so good here, though, for Serral, who now magically finds himself at a massive supply advantage. GG. Turns out you don't even have to go across the map. Alrighty, next up, we find ourselves on Frostline. A spicy game, number one, at least from a mind game point of view. Serral, though, ultimately, marginal advantages. Doesn't look like a lot, but it adds up over time. It's a couple workers here, a couple units there, and then ultimately, When the game ends, he's like, oh, 50 supply up on the opponent. You wonder where it came from. All right. Frostline is a pretty big macro map. A lot of bases that can be acquired here, so we'll have to see if we are going to see any variety. Keep in mind that in this matchup, you can cheese quite easily. There's a lot of early game aggression that you can go for. Neither player, though, opting to go for a 12 pool. It's always been fascinating to me how, like, ZVZ in particular is so different on the ladder than it is at the pro level. Like, Zerg versus Zerg on the ladder is basically all about trying to stay alive if you want to learn to play the macro game. So, most of the time, when you first start playing StarCraft 2, you will get cheesed a bunch of times, and you will realize, wait a second, doing a Zergling Baneling all-in is really fun. I'm just going to do that. So, a lot of the games end up with both players cheesing one another. Somebody figures out a Roach all-in, we go for Roach all-ins instead. It depends on how high you climb up on the ladder. But then, at some point, and the shift is somewhere in, like, I think mid to high Grandmaster. So for like 99% of the player base, it's irrelevant. But in the highest ranks of Grandmaster League, suddenly you, well, see people that are capable of defending all of the cheese. And SHIN and Serral are two of those players. They can defend all of the cheese. So you end up in one of those spots where suddenly the matchup that is normally known to be extremely cheesy becomes very macro. Obviously, you can still mix in cheese. There's still a chance that things go wrong, especially when you're playing with a bunch of ping. But this is not quite the way that your average ladder game goes. As a matter of fact, as I'm casting this, as you're listening to this, there will probably be about a dozen ZVZs going on that end at minute 3. like right now, the game is being played right now. Somebody's morphing in Banelings inside of somebody's main base right here, right now. This is... There's a lot of ways in which you could accidentally lose ZVZ. Okay. Third hatchery for the both of them this time around. Identical strategies for the most part. A little bit of a deviation here as Serral decides to go for a Baneling nest is about 3 seconds quicker. All of that is, though, mostly irrelevant as long as the worker count is sufficient. Somehow Serral has a 1 supply advantage. Huh. Alright, well, let's not look into that all too much. But it is worth pointing out, he's a little bit ahead in that regard. Look how his supply count is climbing slightly quicker than that of SHIN. Oh! SHIN's winning! Big advantage. Huge advantage. Okay, so. We go from Zerglings into Banelings, and then usually from Banelings into Roaches. Couple defensive Banelings here for Serral. He's trying to get a scout off in the main base of the opponent. What he's looking for here is mostly just tech. And whatever other limited types of info he can get. This is actually such a banger of a scout. Brenda should have stepped in and denied that scout altogether. Because Serral, even though he had a 1 HP Zergling there for a while, got all the info he needed. Brenda, you're fired. You had one job, and it was not staring at the hatchery. Okay, well, she's a little old. A little quiet. Back before the Brood Wars, I could fly. Sure, Brenda. Sure. Anyways, great scout there. Serral looking mostly for the gas count. Trying to see if maybe the lair already started up. Is there a Roach Warren hiding behind the main base's mineral line? Is there any cheese coming up? Since the answer to all of that was no, we're going to try and see if maybe there's a bit of an opportunity to be aggressive. So he's using the units that he made for early game defense as a bit of an offensive troop, as he's now transitioning towards the Roach Warren. SHIN doing the same thing. He's just doing it blindly. I don't believe SHIN has got a similar scout. No. Although he did actually see the timing of the lair, so he did actually have a Zergling running in just now.
Your forces are taking damage.
Oh, God.
Terrible damage.
Your forces are taking damage! Terrible, terrible damage! SHIN likes playing with the Diva announcer. Yeah, it is what it is. I guess we'll allow it. There's not much I can do about it anyways. He definitely watches anime, though. A lot of anime. Yeah, for sure. Don't get him started. He'll never shut up about it. So this is both players basically using the troops that they made defensively as a unit that they now want to trade out with. And you know what? This was actually a good exchange for SHIN. Yep, gets Brenda as well. Not bad. All right. So, Laird's just about to finish up for SHIN. Serral already finished up his. He's going into Glio Reconstitution first, but only by about a second. Zergling run by here, attempted, but enough units set up for base defense. And I'm actually liking this spot here for SHIN quite a bit. Ooh, he is liking it so much, as a matter of fact, that he has decided we're gonna go into a Spire. Serral, though, scouts it immediately. Do you cancel? No. Now, interestingly enough, despite the fact that Serral scouted the Spire, he already was building a Hydralisk Den before that. So that was mostly just a confirmation that he should definitely keep that around. He's been droning up a little bit more greedily, by the way. So Mutas will be the weapon of choice here for SHIN. Problem is, if you're running Mutas into somebody who's got Hydras, then obviously the game becomes extremely difficult. Serral may actually go for an attack before the Mutas are out. That is a bit of a classic in this matchup. If you do an attack with Roaches before Mutas are out, there's a good chance, yep, that SHIN is going to respond by making his own defensive Roaches. And when he's making his own defensive Roaches, he's forced to spend his gas. So Serral fakes a move out, goes back home, decides, nope, I'm actually gonna go across the map here anyway. And all of this is forcing SHIN to use his gas bank that he would have much rather spent on Mutalisks. In a very strange way in this matchup, Roaches counter Mutas. Even though they can't shoot up. Yeah, look at Serral. He's just faking it, dude. Fake. I'm gonna go for. I'm just kidding. I was kidding when I was kidding. I'm gonna go for. I was actually kidding when I was kidding when I was kidding. I'm gonna go for an attack. I'm just kidding. I'm actually not gonna go for an attack at all. And then ultimately, when the Mutas are out, Hydras are already here. Ay. And Serral does this better than anybody else, by the way. Like, his mind games, he's got this weird image. A lot of pro gamers will have this strange aura, but Serral has this to a much more significant extent, where a lot of people just don't believe he's gonna make mistakes. And they play around that. Like, they kind of start playing in their own head a little bit. And now suddenly, we have spent 600 minerals and 600 gas on 4 Mutas and a Spire. And what in the world are you gonna... Yeah, they're gonna kill some Overlords. Alright. Whoop-de-doo. In a straight-up engagement, Roach Hydra is way better than Roach Ravager. Serral now going into the Roach Burrow. Tunneling Claws coming up. And then the Burrow upgrade itself. Fourth hatchery now here is done for SHIN. Serral's building his own. He delayed that for a while. I don't believe that SHIN can really go for a good attack. I mean, he's maxed out, so he kind of needs to do something. But this is, once more, a positional advantage here for Serral. Concave here obviously beats the Convex. Just because of surface area. Tunneling Claws is nice because it allows your Roaches to heal up nice and early and nice and quickly. It's not even done yet, but we can still sit underground for a little while. APM, by the way, extremely high for both players. SHIN sitting at a casual 10 buttons a second. Serral only like 8. Kind of cringe. Imagine only having 8 buttons a second. Yeah. Some real-time 400 IQ chess games. It is not easily done. Now, though, ooh, there's a lot of Ravagers exposed. Now, though, Tunneling Claws has been revealed. The skin on those Roaches in blue has changed. They have now got little spikes. It's like it's the 90s all over again. They got a pot of hair gel. He's trying to retreat the corrosive biles in a way. Trying to throw them in such a way that the corrosive biles are not going to land on his, well, own units and potentially on his opponents. They're all just running through it. Turns out the Roaches in blue have brought an umbrella. And I think he actually may have just found a perfect opportunity. What happened? SHIN suddenly is 35 supply down. This is a classic Serral game again, dude. Like, suddenly we look at the game and we're like, yeah, everything's been kind of... Never mind, 30 supply behind. With a superior army to boot as well, because Roach Hydra hits like a truck against most, Roach Ravager. 4th hatchery falls. There's those couple mutas up in the air that did absolutely nothing. Serral now target firing down the Ravagers. Perfect game by Serral. Alrighty. That takes us to Amygdala. SHIN not playing poorly by any stretch of the imagination. He's playing a solid set of games. He's just getting outskilled a little bit, which is probably the worst case scenario. Once more, Roaches counter mutas. Now, why don't the pro gamers spread creep in ZVZ? So creep in StarCraft 2 is considered to be neutral. So the little creep tumor that gets planted down is basically you gotta view it as like a structure that is owned by the player's core. The creep itself, however, that it emits, that it like radiates out of, that is neutral. So both players will benefit from it. Sometimes you will see players going into creep spread when the opponent is going like 2-base muta. So say, for example, you have one player going 2-base muta and they're basically just making flying units. At that point, if you're the one with the ground army, you benefit from having the creep out. But yeah, if both players benefit from it, you may not want to help out your opponent too much. Also, when you set up, like imagine the creep is all the way over here, right? And your opponent is trying to attack. You want to set up the creep in such a way that you can very quickly form the concave, but your opponent doesn't have a similar opportunity in their section of the map. So say there's an attack over here. Serral can spread creep in this area and then quickly set up a concave that will help him out defend this choke. Whereas if he spreads the creep all the way down here and a little bit further out, then he's basically giving that same opportunity to the opponent. So ZVZ is a bit funky where sometimes you want to spread creep. Most of the time you don't really, but you still want to sort of connect the base. Aw, a little Overlord kiss? Aw, SHIN went in for the Overlord kiss. Yeah, they mostly just touch cheeks. Maybe touching cheeks is even further than... I don't know how Overlord... I don't know. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Anyway. Maybe that's just how Zerg players say hello. Maybe that's how it's done in Finland. Who knows? Who knows what's going on in Finland? Maybe that's how they say hello. They sit in the sauna together. They swim in the ice lake together. And then they touch cheek. Yeah. Nobody knows. Just hanging out. All right. Amygdala. This is the map with the 2 attack lanes. Until the rocks are destroyed in the middle. And until the tentacles are gone. Very defensive map though, on the whole. Couple Zerglings here being a nuisance. These actually do have to be addressed. If you don't have any Zerglings to deal with those Zerglings attacking your third, they won't be able to kill it, but they're really gonna soften it up. SHIN has decided to walk the queen. Both Brenda and Karen get to go on a little bit of a walk. Yeah, this is gonna miss him an inject, and I actually don't like this positioning on the Baling Nest. It's gonna slow things even more. Yeah, already, so this is a very small advantage, but an advantage nonetheless. Serral made 1 additional group of Zerglings. Look at the inject timing now. He's got double injects popping off. SHIN has decided to only go for a single inject because he's decided to settle for a creep tumor. He did remake the queen in the main base, but all of this feels a little finicky. It's going... You can only spend minerals 1 time. It's coming at the cost of his drones. It's not a huge disadvantage. None of it is the end of the world. But it is the type of small momentum that Serral likes. Little Zergling run by, once more at 1 HP. Once more, Brenda sleeping on the job. Gets a perfect scout again. Can we see... Nope. Can we see the same thing on the other side? SHIN does not quite get so lucky. Okay. Now we play Lair Chicken. Who goes for the Lair first? It's 100 gas for a Lair. Alright, SHIN decides to spend it. Serral has decided that he doesn't want to go into the Lair just yet. Goes for it a couple seconds after SHIN. Nothing all too crazy. Main thing, of course, for Lair is that you get yourself the Roach speed, the Hydra potential, any other follow-ups. Roach speed, though, is really the big one. Couple Banelings here attempted to go in from multiple angles. Queen over here on hold position in the wall off. Okay. Excellent defense. +1 missile coming up for Serral a little bit before the opponents. SHIN does have an Evo chamber. He just hasn't started it up yet. Come on. SHIN, we can't forget about the upgrade. Those upgrades are actually very critical. Generally, you have to go +1 missile before roach speed because +1 missile takes longer to research than roach speed. There's a good chance that SHIN is now going to start up roach speed now that the lair is done. Oh, okay. We're purposely skipping it. He is effectively going for like a tech all-in by once more building up the spire. And he's now going into +1 melee. So he wants to go mass muta. He may have to fake the Roach Warren upgrade, because Serral's now checking for it. There is a Roach animation, like a Roach Warren animation. So Serral's over here. There's like a little Roach that pops out in the front every once in a while. And it's like wiggling. Serral has certainly picked up on the fact that Roach speed did not quite start. Now, it could mean that the lair is late. That is an option. It could also be that SHIN is trying to hide something inside of the main base. Overseer is not in an easy position, though, and the main base is absolutely massive. He's trying to get lucky, but he knows he's not going to scout. Hydra then starts up blindly because of this. Honestly, though, if he can get another like follow-up scout to see that roach speed didn't start, Serral would know that something here is not quite right, and I think he probably already realizes that. Yeah, we have a second Overseer. So this second Overseer will see that the Evo Chamber is wiggling, but that the Roach Warren is not. So this has to be some sort of shenanigans here. What type of shenanigans? He doesn't know. He's gonna find out, though, right now. +1 missile or +1 flyers here, also researching for SHIN. So it's going to be mass mutalisks. This means that Serral will be forced to play defensively. He does have roach speed, but at this point I think it's a little bit too late to try and see if he can counter mutas with roaches again. I don't think he really can, although he could still give it a shot. We may have to go for spores. Yep, spore crawlers instead, together with hydras. Now, Amygdala does have a nice forward 4th base. This is something that SHIN can work on. I wonder if maybe you should go in for the kill on that thing. Yeah. Because this is the real advantage when you play mutas. You get map control, and you can keep your opponent occupied on 3 bases. Once they go up to 4 bases, well, if Serral gets 8 gases going, he can go into Mass Hydra, he can go into a Hive, he can build up towards Vipers. Parasitic Bomb, for obvious reasons, is amazing. The hatchery lives, though. He decides to now turn around. He really wants to get the kill. I think that was a little over-eager. Desperation move right there by SHIN. He's working on the rocks in the meantime. What he should have done is sent the Zerglings across together with those mutas to push those Hydras away, and then everything else could have been cleared out. The roaches were not quite protecting it. Serral now going in for a move here on the left. Only like 8 mutas, 7 mutas? No, 9 mutas here in total against that many roaches. It's going to take a while for them to kill it. He's waiting for the Hydras to show up. Hydras have ranged. They do not have... Oh, they do not have donuts. They don't have those either. But they do have the ranged upgrade. Grooved Spines. It's going to give the Hydras a bit of additional range. And at the very least, it's buying an awful lot of time for those roaches to do whatever they like. Big Zergling run by right now on the other side of the map. But again, you glance down at the bottom of the screen. SHIN's supply count is just not quite where it should be. Still, though, this Ling run by is phenomenal. And those Zerglings have +1 melee too, so it's quite difficult here for Serral to actually defend against this. Yeah. In a base race scenario, I think you'd rather have mutas and Zerglings than you have roaches, although the roaches are already in position. 32 drones inside of the main base. Looks like SHIN is trying to see if he can set up shop over here. Serral's lost a lot of workers himself too, though. He's making a bunch of Hydras and Queens, and he's got a Spore Crawler and a cloud of Overlords over at the 3rd. The idea being that the Mutas and Zerglings can never really engage here. Roach is coming in from the side. Serral still trying to mostly cover up the screen with the OVs. In the meantime, he's got a lot of Roach Hydra. Keep in mind that the win condition in a game of StarCraft is to destroy your opponent's structures. The armies do not matter. All of these things in the top left of your screen do count. Gas geysers included. And when you have mutas, well, you can deny a lot of your opponent's roaches. spawning pool right now in a world of trouble. Same can be said right over here inside of the main base, but I think SHIN should be able to... Well, maybe I say that. That's a lot more Hydras actually than I thought Serral had on this side of the map. I think Serral, though, is not going to have an easy time clearing out all of the structures. Likewise, this expansion is looking really difficult to attack into. Hydras are going to be able to kill these roaches easy peasy. Ah, SHIN can't hold on. GG. He's a little bit too fast. His micro is too strong. His macro is too good. His mind games are too powerful. And it's only very small margins. It's not like SHIN is getting heavily outplayed. It's just that Serral is just too good, man. It's... I don't know what it is. Maybe he's got like the perfect... I don't know. Gaming mouse. Maybe he's got the gaming chair. Maybe if SHIN would go out and buy Serral's gaming chair, he would be able to get the job. Maybe SHIN needs to shift away from the diva announcer and use the Serral, whatever Serral uses. I don't know. Probably standard. He should be using the Lowko announcer though. I'm pretty sure that the Lowko announcer is like a 100% MMR increase. Is what well, maybe, I don't know. No guarantee there, but it's possible. Either way, Serral's playing phenomenally good. I do believe that Serral is struggling right now more so than at any other previous period in StarCraft 2, ever since he got really good at the game, now 7 years ago. I think he's struggling more right now than ever before, mostly because of the balance changes that have happened since then. Like, genuinely, Serral is probably responsible for about 80% of all of the Zerg nerfs. If you compile all of the changes that were made to Zerg over the last 7 years, I think Serral is genuinely responsible for the vast majority of it. Honestly, if you give him 2018 Zerg back, I don't think he ever loses a game ever again. Like, basic units like the Queen were vastly more powerful. But every time we think that Zerg has maybe been over-nerfed, or maybe Zerg is just underperforming or whatever, Serral comes back up and he just figures out how to get good, and it's a consistency, you know? There's a few certainties in life. There's death, there's taxes, and there's Serral being good at StarCraft. Those are really the only certainties that I have. Dude, sometimes I wonder when people that like watch, say they watch like one cast of mine and they just hear me yapping on and on and on about unrelated stuff. Oh well. Sometimes I wonder what people think. But anyways. It's funny too, because sometimes I look back at like one of my very first StarCraft casts many, many years ago at this point. And they're very different. For one, I used to repeat the same 7 words over and over and over again. Just in, like, my entire vocabulary was about 7 words in total. I definitely did not have the word vocabulary in my vocabulary. Anyways, it's going to be a quick roach warren together with a quick baneling nest here for Serral. That's suspicious. We are going into an all-in. At least I think so. SHIN has got link speed finishing up. If he can sniff this out somehow, it's gonna make base defense way easier. The main problem that SHIN can run into here is over-droning. Serral trying to get a scout into the main base, does not quite get the job done. Serral also, though, saving up some cash, and he's gonna be spending his dollar bills. Well, actually, his minerals and his gas. Here comes SHIN. Superhero Zerglings. I mean, that's a suspicious amount of links here in blue, but nothing out of the ordinary. SHIN's to stop making drones, though. There's a time for droning, and that has ended right now. 0 workers over at the 3rd. Queen is wandering on over in this direction. He still makes more drones. Oh, SHIN. SHIN, we need to make army. Okay, he sees the roach move out. He sees the roach move out. This is giving him about a 30-second heads up that something aggressive is coming. Drones have decided that they are gonna turn their little biter, like, I don't know, their claws here. Whatever, do they attack with their mouths or their claws? I don't know how it works. They clear out the links. SHIN only has Zerglings, Banelings, and Queens, though, for defense against somebody who's got Banelings, Roaches, and Zerglings for offense. Obviously, Serral does not want all the Banelings to kill all of his Lings. He needs this fight to be over reasonably quickly. Layers upon layers of Banelings. It's like a Baneling lasagna over here. Yeah, this is good. Well done by SHIN. Not over yet. Still losable. But that was about as good as the defense was ever going to be. Yep, nicely done. Very brave, by the way, to be attacking that with all your Lings. A little unnecessary, but hey, gets the job done. Now we can go back into droning, but look at the worker count. Oh! 12 workers here at an advantage for SHIN. Serral trying his very best to catch up in that worker count, making him... well, believe here at this point in time that there are a lot more Zerglings than there actually are. Roach is now coming up defensively for SHIN as well. Serral trying to just sneak out as many of those bad boys as possible. Yeah, still though, during all of this, SHIN has had a significant income advantage for like 40% of this game. He's had a substantial advantage. It's a short game, to be fair, but it should allow him to get quite a bit of eco going. He decides to drone up again from here. He's over-making overlords, by the way. That's a mistake that shouldn't be happening at this point in time, but usually that's an indicator that somebody is a bit nervous. You don't want to get 4-0'd. Like, getting 4-0'd? That's embarrassing. I think SHIN is also, like, on another high right now. He's been playing extremely well over these last few months. So maybe the nerf's kicking in a little bit. But if we wanted to go for an attack, that attack is not nearly as potent now, since he's got way too many overlords. Sometimes you just gotta say, well, we're gonna go. We gotta get this job done. But the longer that he waits, the better this is going to be for Serral. Serral sending in a Ling group. Pushes away the overlord. Sends in the group of Zerglings in a counterattack. I like this a lot. Say, for example, the army in red commits. Then these Zerglings can run in. And even if they just delay the attack by, like, I don't know, a half minute or so, everything's gonna be worth it. SHIN, by the way, just, yeah, trying to fill out his supply count now. It's a little funky. I don't think he originally intended on going all the way up to 146, but I guess that's what we're doing. Yeah. Very strange timing. An unintentional timing, if I'm not mistaken. Zerglings, by the way, return back home. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. Is there enough for Serral to defend? One Baneling goes down. Another Baneling goes down. Good targeting here by SHIN. Trying his very best to keep all of these units around. In the meantime, yeah, that little squad of Zerglings is putting in a bit of work, but not a ton. SHIN is getting on top of all of the production right now, though, and that means that the Roaches in blue are going to get sniped as soon as they, well, spawn. It's a little sad. StarCraft equivalent of a spawn kill. Oh, good morphing here of the low HP Roaches into Ravagers. It does spawn when they spawn as a Ravager in full HP. Extremely dicey fight, but SHIN just has the numbers advantage at this point. GG. Next up, we find ourselves on Ley Lines. Let's see. Honestly, not the most dominant game from SHIN. I don't think he's particularly proud of that win, although it counts. It was a little bit messy, and certainly a little bit indecisive too. Ultimately, it was Serral going for a very committed push, and it didn't really get the job done. And the reason he went for that attack is because, well, he was leading the series 3-0. He's got 4 games to try and get this done. Now we're back though to playing normal, at least for the time being. Hatch gas pool for the both of them. SHIN, by the way, opening up with a 13 overlord here, rather than the 15. No extractor trick for him. Baneling nest at the front. Baneling nest in the back. Tiny little mind game there. Certainly not unintentional. What I'm trying to say is that the positioning of this baneling nest is intentional. Not unintentional is another way to say it, though. I've been casting too many games back to back to back. If I just say it, though, with a serious voice, nobody would have noticed. Ruined it for myself. All right. Link speed is done for Shin. Gonna try and see if he can run in. Sees the Baneling Nest. He's like, yo, you son of a... Son of a sauna! I don't even know if Serral does saunas, but he's Finnish, so probably. I learned of this a few years ago. Apparently every, like, apartment in Finland... Like, even if you have, like, a small apartment, apparently pretty much every single one of them comes with a built-in sauna. Isn't that crazy? Like, basically every shower, like, every bathroom apparently has a sauna included. When I think of people that own saunas, I immediately assume you're rich. In my mind, that's like saying you own horses. You know? Like, nobody that I know. I don't know anybody that owns horses, but I assume that if you own horses, you must be rich. Same with saunas. Maybe they also get a horse in every apartment. I don't know. Probably not. Lair coming up here for Shin. Much earlier here than Serral's. Serral actually very committed to making a lot of roaches. Actually, he's just going for another back-to-back push. Serral's actually just trying to go for another all-in. And you know what? You have 4 shots. Like, you can go for 4 all-ins. And what are the odds of your opponent holding 4 all-ins? Let's see. Is there enough? Little Zergling run by. Serral doesn't have a whole lot of economy, but not a terrible amount either. He's mostly behind here in tech. 1 Baneling for 1 Zergling. Okay, like 5 Zerglings for 1 Baneling. Good trade so far here for the finisher. Yeah. I think he was hoping that the opponent would not figure it out. But Shin's scouting has been pretty solid. And he did not quite see... Well, he did notice here that Serral was going for this attack right as the roaches spawned. So he had enough stuff there to defend. Serral, in the meantime, while he was attacking, made a bunch of drones. And he's now actually leading the worker count. But again, yeah, it's been an absolute roller coaster in that department. Shin was leading in that department a bunch of times. Spinecrawler now coming up. Roach speed here is the real advantage for Shin. Shin once more over-making overlords. Serral likewise, though, making the same mistake. He is skipping the Evo Chamber upgrade. Now, there was a time when, in ZVZ, Zerg players believed that making upgrades... And when I say Zerg players, I mean Elazer. Elazer believed that making Evo Chamber upgrades is not worthwhile. And I think he actually still believes that. Should maybe just using the Evo Chamber here as a wall-off? I'm not sure. It's a dangerous move. This is now effectively pushing Shin into an all-in, though. And I don't think he was really signing up for it. Serral restarts the Spinecrawler. It's a lot of roaches in blue, and they will have roach speed. And that is something that Serral's units won't have, but the fight will take place on creep. Let's see. Couple corrosive balls here to get the units moving. Ravagers run away. Spinecrawler here would be really nice. Good target firing right there by Shin. He does get 1 and actually both of the Ravagers. Defender's advantage, though, is huge. The fact that Serral's units spawn closer to this battle... Actually, you only get 1 of the Ravagers. For some reason, that one was not in my vision. Yeah, the fact that his units spawn closer to the battle... Absolute massive change. With all of that defended, a roach speed is now coming up. Serral delaying that one for quite a while. But it seems like he's okay. This is, by the way, the matchup where Serral is perceived to be weak. A lot of people think his ZVZ is not as good compared to his ZVT and ZVP. Bit of a silly thing, if I'm being completely honest with you. Historically, Serral has lost a couple of important series. Like, for example, against Ragnarok. Like, for example, against Solar. But I've got a feeling that a lot of people perceive that his ZVZ is weak because his ZVT and his ZVP are so good. Like, his ZVZ win rate historically is still incredibly high. Way higher than the average pro gamer. Way higher than his main competitors. if you compare it to other Zerg players. It's just a couple of important mind games that did not quite go his way. I feel like this series here is showing it too. Like, there was a time when, I will admit, he wasn't that great at ZVZ compared to the other matchups. And I feel like he's brought it more in line over the last 2 to 3 years or so. Right now, this is looking incredibly strong. Not really catching him on a whole lot of mistakes. Overlord Cocoon being morphed in here for SHIN. Another weapon of choice, though, with the roaches is going to be Tunneling Claws again, and that will be what Serral is opting for. Work accounts basically even. Shindo behind. Mostly because the traits have been suboptimal. Oh god, this is a little bit awkward. We have a Sloverlord drop. I mean, Pneumatized Carapace is coming. Right over here. It'll be a little while until it's done, but... Sarah can already see this. Look at this. Formula 1 Overseer coming in. Oh, man, you see that? Doesn't even have to worry about the turn radius or anything. He can speed straight through the corners. Couple roaches here as a distraction. Tunneling Claws will likely be used on them. Where's that Dropper Lord? Oh, there it is. Serral making a mistake! He's human! 9 drones go down. Okay. Even though he saw that coming in from a mile away, I think he probably called it as a bluff. Turns out it was such a silly move that it wasn't a bluff. SHIN going all in with 2-7 offsuit pre-flop. Like, there's no way you're gonna have... Oh, no, we're bailing Society Overlord. Brilliant. The dance continues right now, though. The Biles are left, right, and center. Couple of roaches going to the natural expansion, too. One roach splits off into the main base. That is a major distraction. Suddenly, those corrosive Biles aren't so easy to dodge. Okay, couple roaches here. Trying to dance. Defender's advantage, of course, in favor here of SHIN. But SHIN is rallying towards his mineral lines because he's being distracted by those red roaches. Super annoying. Tunneling Claws is not really a resource-effective play. It's an APM effective play. You need so much in order to deal with all of it. You can still only look at one screen at a time. And that's now allowing him to get the kill on the 4th base. In the meantime, Serral obviously has got 4 bases. This is a bit of an awkward fight, though, here for the player in the red. Those units cannot go home. We have concaves within concaves. This is like an S-curve over here for both players. Not exactly sure how that favors anybody. I'm assuming it favors SHIN here because of the defender's advantage, but Serral now has a 4th base up. SHIN is going for the Desperation Infester. If this game goes on for another couple minutes, Serral should be able to pull very far ahead. Already, look at this. Supply-wise, 60 supply up. Income-wise, we're back up. 1,000 resources more a minute. Hydra Den. Armor upgrade. Not quite the cheese that he had envisioned. Not quite the cheese that he aimed for in the early game, but still a very formidable follow-up. I don't think SHIN has the numbers. Normally, yeah, you want to back up from a fight like that. I think Serral could have fought that just because he's got the numbers. He doesn't want to take any chances. Reinforcements are coming in. SHIN, he recognizes now how big that army is. GG gets cold. And Serral, he wins a 4-1 victory over SHIN. GG.